Join Jessica Smith on Lead Like a Girl podcast, where she defies odds, shares inspiring stories, and empowers women to embrace their inner leaders. Tune in for a transformative journey.
Hello, hello. Lead Like a Girl. How are y'all doing? It's another week here at Lead Like a Girl, and I didn't know if I was going to make it this week, y'all. I didn't know. So I'm going to keep on my little detour here for another week, if you don't mind. So the last time I spoke, I just shared my heart and my memories about my grandfather, Mr. Gregorio Manuel Aviles Jr. So this past week, we went and we traveled to Chicago, and his funeral was perfect. It was wonderful. My aunts and uncle did a phenomenal job. Shout out to the Aviles family. They did a phenomenal job and really brought things together quickly. We had to pivot a little bit, but it was all good. And I may have mentioned this, but I'm telling you, my grandfather, being this man of God, this disciple, is how I think of him. If he had to actually write when he would check out of here, what that transition would look like, and you talking about Palm Sunday, his funeral and everything being on Easter weekend, man, that's exactly how he would have had it. Resurrection Sunday, y'all. That is exactly how my grandpa would have had it. So it really wasn't, for me, it wasn't a time of mourning. It was really a celebration of his life. Listen, we were at the funeral and I just had such a busy week. The Smiths have so much going on. I tell people all the time, they laugh at me, but I'm like, really, I really do just want a normal, boring life. And I said that this weekend, and my girl, Jessica Sanchez, said, this is your regular life. This was the life you were meant to live. So, you know, as much as I say that, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that God gave me the position and the role in which there is always something going on. There is always multiple fires that need to be put out, and I guess I'm here for it, y'all. I guess I'm here for it, and the Smiths are always working together. I am grateful for my wonderful husband. He just celebrated a birthday on the 27th, and I'm just thankful that I'm not living in this position alone, that we are walking through these fires together. So, but at the funeral, like I said, things are just so crazy. I did not have an opportunity to even think about, you know, what I was saying last week's episode. Little did I know would really prepare me for what was going to happen the day of his funeral. And that was, we got there a little bit late, so it had already started, and, you know, tried to quietly walk in and sit in the back row. The priest was talking. He said his sermon. He gets to the end and he asked if anybody wanted to say a few words. And my mother, Pauline, looks back over her shoulder, kind of looking for me, and she sees me. She makes eye contact and she's like looking at me like, yeah, you. So I look the other way like I don't see her looking at me. I'm ignoring her because I am not prepared. And then the priest goes on to say, well, I know he had many grandchildren. Maybe one of the grandchildren would like to say a few words. And I'm looking straight ahead. I'm trying not to make any eye contact here. But y'all know how you get that look from your mama. She turned back again and looked at me and then started like, taking her head to position like, get up. And I'm still ignoring her like I'm not getting up. Well, by the third time, she gave me that look, that one look, the look like, you will be in the casket with your grandfather if you don't get your ass up now. And so, listen, I'm going to tell you one thing. I don't care how big and bad I was or I am at 45 years old. I'm still not trying Pauline, y'all. Not doing it. I got my butt up. I said, okay, I'd like to say a few words. I really didn't. I really didn't, y'all, because it was a lot. It was a lot for me that week. And in that moment, I just didn't think that I had it in me until I did. And I got up there and like I said, my last week, thank you guys for listening because that did help me prepare and what I wanted to say. And, what I shared was just the importance of legacy. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to just hopefully make you guys just stop and think about something that you may or may not think about. But here at the Smiths, my husband speaks a lot of this, like this is his thing. And he really talks a lot about it to our sons when he speaks about legacy. It's an important thing to us. And so I wanted to dive a little bit more into that. But first, please do continue to keep our family in your prayers. Even though I say it was a celebration, the part that is still a little heavy is my grandmother is still here. And as I said at his funeral, it's actually the most beautiful love story that I am aware of, and definitely on both sides for my mother's family and my father's family. I think it was said that my grandparents were married about 80 years. 80 years, 80. Like, first of all, I can't even imagine really being on this earth for 80 years, much less, we know I love Mr. Smith, but 80 years? And this was the only man that my grandmother had ever been with, ever dated, ever kissed. One. Only one. Okay? So it's a beautiful love story. And I had the opportunity to go and pray over my grandmother. And she knew who I was. So she is too, I believe, 96 years old. And it seems as though that she may be transitioning soon here. So we may have to turn around and go back to Chicago, and that's okay, because I just asked God to just be with her. I just asked that she wasn't in pain, and that if it is time, that he just takes her so that she can lay at peace with her love. And that one day they will meet again. So that's the only piece of this story that leaves me with a heavy heart. I also ask for prayers for my aunts, my aunts and my uncle. All 5 of my grandparents' children are still alive to this day. What a blessing. They all stand alive, healthy, and well. And to the last days, they have taken care of their parents. They have honored them. My aunts and uncles didn't even cuss in front of my grandparents. Some of these folks is 60s, 70s, didn't even cuss. That was another thing that really stuck out to me, that there was a level of respect, and I carried that on. Listen, y'all can live your house and raise your children and have a relationship any way you feel is right for you. But let me tell you about me. Me and my children, we're not going to the club together. We are not going out for beers. As a matter of fact, even if we're at a family gathering, we're not going to sit at the table and drink together. My son just turned 30. He's not going to even cuss in front of me. He is not going to be in my house saying it's not going to happen. And guess what? I got that from my grandparents and their children. I got that from them. So it's just so many things that just bring me to when I think of legacy that I wanted to discuss, that I'm just so proud and so thankful and honored to just be a part of this family that left such a legacy that I can pass down to my children. So when I think about legacy and what it is and why it matters, like, it goes beyond. I know that there's some families, and this can go into a cultural thing too. I won't, get too much in the weeds with that. But, for some people, you could have a very wealthy family where that legacy is about possessions or wealth. And for me, it's more about that, the influence and the memories that those individuals leave behind. I talked about my grandfather's tortillas, and for my grandmother, it is her tamales. So good. And I'm mad at myself that I never took the time to learn how to make them. But shout out to my cousin Rosie, because she did. And trust, I will be circling back for that recipe because they were good. With it being Easter Sunday, and I haven't been able to find this picture, but I'm going to find it. So my favorite Easter dress growing up was made by my grandmother. And I really wish that I had it to this day. So it was like a crocheted, like knitted sweater dress, and it was mint green, and it was kind of like a little bit like a mini skirt, and I wore it with some white tights. But what I loved about this dress is that it had this hat. It had this little beret-like hat with a white ball on the top of it. Y'all, it was so cute, and I just thought I was just the shit. It was so cute, and I loved it. It was so special to me. And it wasn't just because it was so cute. It was because my grandmother made it with her own hands. And she made it for me. So I remembered that this weekend, and I'm going to find that picture and I'm going to share it. So when you think of legacy, there's also different types of legacy. There's your personal legacy. There's your family legacy. For some people, it's their legacy within their community, or maybe their professional legacy. So I like to believe in my, I call it my former life of direct buy in my profession, that I left a legacy, that I achieved things that no one had achieved in the company. And that was such a big thing for me. Like, I'm a salesperson. Of course, I'm competitive. I want to win, but I wanted to be known for something big. I wanted to be known. I always wanted to be famous when I was a kid. I thought I was going to, go to Hollywood and be a movie star. That didn't happen, but I was like, okay, this is the closest thing that I'm going to get to be. I want to be famous. And I busted my butt to work hard because I wanted to be known for something. Guess what? About, I don't know, it's been a couple of months now, as big of a company as this company is that I work for, I come across this guy who's in this interview, and he shows up to the interview and he says, "You don't know me, but I know you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. You know me from where?" He says, you're like a legend. I'm like, a legend? I'm thinking, what is he talking about? This dude. He says, "At Direct Buy, I chased you for years. I mean, you did things that nobody else did." And I'm like, what? Turns out this guy grew up in Direct Buy, and I think we met, but we never, formed a relationship. But the things that he shared with me about me, and I humbly say this, I was like, wow, I forgot I was kind of famous. And it just reminded me that I was working towards something. And even though that life is behind me, it still meant something. So when you think about legacy and how you build a legacy, it really starts with, and I have this conversation with a lot of people that I mentor that are younger, because obviously the younger you are, the better this thing works out for you, right? But doesn't matter, whatever age you are, here's what people always remember. They remember the end, right? Not necessarily 100 years ago. So it doesn't matter how old you are in this thing. It is never too late to build your legacy, to build your brand. So when you think about your legacy and what that means, it starts with a self-reflection. What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want them to say at your funeral. Stop and reflect on your values and your passions and your goals. And when you do that, it's going to help you really clarify what you want your legacy to be. Not just what you want to be remembered about, but also what impact do you hope to have on other people? For me, that's really where this thing keeps me up at night. And some people would disagree with me on this. Listen, I love my kids and I want to see them do well, but I love people. I love my family and I want to see them do well, but I love people. We are all God's children. And so sometimes I have to be careful, and it's a balancing act, because I understand that my family is important, but I have to remember that people are just as important. And sometimes people outside of your family, I'm not going to go on this detour, are more deserving to your help than your own family. Not going to go on that detour. Let me keep going. So when you think about all of these things, your values and your principles of your life, they're going to guide your legacy. And this is also where that importance of being authentic and really staying true to yourself when you think about your legacy. I tell people all the time, you can't be a phony baloney, because that made me laugh, because my grandfather used to say that all the time. He used to say that was another word of his, where he would say, "You're full of baloney." Well, that when you try to be something that you're not, that's not your legacy. Okay? You have to really know what's important to you. There's this self-reflection. And here, once upon a time, I had to look in the mirror and realize that there were some things that I didn't like what I saw. And so that's important. You have to deal with that. Because if you have this, spirit of selfishness where you only care about yourself, if you are really doing a deep dive into reflecting of what your legacy is, that thing is going to show up, which is good, because then that gives you that opportunity to get it right. And so when I think about that legacy, or even if we're talking about family legacy, passing down those traditions and those stories and what those values are, like when I talk about my grandparents and the level of respect that their children have, those things were passed down. And I hope and pray that my children do the same thing. Sharing our family stories, traditions, and values, they strengthen bonds between generations, and they break generational curses. So when I think about my dad's side of the family, and this isn't to compare one is better than the other, but my dad would sit and smoke, just fire up a joint with his kids. Now, I wasn't of the joint smoking age before he passed, but his belief was I'd rather them do it at home than them be out in the streets and do it. But I saw something different from my mom's family, and what felt right to me was that. And when I think about some of those generational curses of drug and alcohol abuse, I'm saying to myself, okay, even in the days that I would be sitting and smoking in front of my kids, probably not a good idea to smoke with them, right? Because there was that school of do as I say, not as I do. Hey, we were trying to do better. So all of these things make a difference in the legacy that you're trying to leave. I want to not only talk about it, but I want to be about it. We talk to our children a lot about integrity. That's one of our family foundational words, integrity. It's not just about doing the right thing. It's about doing the right thing when no one is looking. But here's reality. That's another thing I tell these kids all the time. We don't live in a world anymore. Look what's happening out there right now. There's no such thing as no one's looking, because all things in the dark always come to the light. So we're in a time where you might want to embrace integrity, because everybody's going to get outed one way or the other. It's so much easier to just do the right thing. And when we think about our legacy and our family legacy, do we want generational success and wealth? Absolutely. But when we think about the why, okay, it's not so that we can have nice things and drive nice cars and have fancy bags. And let me be clear, nothing wrong with that. Okay, the Smiths like to look good. But that's not our main core reason for it. We want to have generational wealth so that we can help more people, so that we can have more resources to help more people. So I just hope that I leave you with something to think about. And that is, what is your legacy today? What is your brand? Because I know some people don't like to use that word, and some people don't think of themselves that way, but each and every one of us has a brand. When someone says your name, people think of something. What is that? What is the current state of that? And what do you want it to be? Because you can close that gap. What do you want your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren to say about you? What are those stories that when they talk about you, when they see that picture of you, what's the rest of the sentence? I remember that time when. What does that sound like? So I hope that I have provoked those thoughts today. And you stay tuned for the next episode of Lead Like a Girl.
Thank you for tuning in to another insightful episode of Lead Like a Girl. We hope you found today's podcast valuable. If you enjoyed our podcast, please consider subscribing and leaving a review on your preferred platform. Your feedback is crucial in helping us continue to provide high-quality content. If you found the content inspiring, we would like to encourage you to share this podcast with your network. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories and leadership insights on Lead Like a Girl. Until next time, lead with passion and purpose.